Yesterday, the 2025 schedule for the Washington Commanders officially released, and today I'm giving you my first record prediction for the Burgundy and Gold as we approach the 2025 campaign. Before we get into today's content, predict it for me down there in the comments section. What do you think will be the Commanders' record this year? Do you think they'll have a better record this year? Do you think they'll have a worse record this year? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section to kick off today's show before I reveal what I think the record will be this year. So we'll start with week 1 versus the New York Football Giants. And yes, I do think that they will win that game at home. Now, if I'm looking at a potential letdown game there where Russell Wilson, his first game as a Giant, all these different things, I could see the Giants in a divisional matchup maybe upsetting the Commanders there, but I certainly wouldn't bet on it at this point in time. I think Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn are going to have their guys ready to go, and I do think they're going to take care of business versus the G-Men there in week 1. But that is a dangerous pass rush, and they better come ready to play if they want to start the season 1-0. Then in week 2, on Thursday Night Football, the Commanders will travel to Green Bay on the short week to take on the Green Bay Packers. Of course, they were a playoff team in the NFC last year as well. And I do think this is a bit of a toss-up game. I do think the Commanders have the better quarterback, but I think maybe Green Bay has the slightly better roster overall, and they're the home team. So Green Bay could certainly come away with the victory here. But I think Jaden Daniels has a knack for winning these types of football games where he is making plays all over the place, where he is taking over the football game. So give me the Washington Commanders to win that game in week 2 versus Green Bay to start the season 2-0. Then versus the Raiders in week 3, their defense absolutely stinks. I think Jaden Daniels will absolutely light them up. I think Josh Connerly Jr. will do a good job on Max Crosby, limiting his impact on the football game. And I think the Commanders probably blow out the Las Vegas Raiders there in week 3. Then we move on to week 4 for the Washington Commanders, where they will face Michael Penix and the Atlanta Falcons. I think Penix is going to be okay this year. I think he might take a step forward, but I also don't think he's going to be an elite quarterback just yet in the National Football League. Because of that, I think this game could be somewhat close. It is going to be in Atlanta, but I do think Washington will take care of their business and start the season with their 4th straight victory. Then we move on to week 5 versus the Chargers at SoFi Stadium on the road. That's a physical football team. I think that this will be the Commanders' first loss of the season. I think that Chargers team is going to be a pretty darn good one this year with Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh going into the second year together there in LA. So I think that will end up being the first loss for the Washington Commanders of their 2025 schedule. So let me know down there in the comments section, are you going to a Commanders game this year? Simply give me a yes or no down there in the comment section if you plan on going to a Commanders game at Northwest Stadium or anywhere else, any of their road games as well this season. This will be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, take advantage of that time. But give me a yes or a no down there in the comments. Then in week 6, I'm actually going to have the Commanders lose to Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, and the Chicago Bears at home on Monday Night Football. The Bears get their revenge for the Hail Mary game last year. Now, the reason for this is I do think Chicago is going to take a big step forward this year with Ben Johnson leading the way. I think he's going to do wonders for Caleb Williams' development, so I think the Bears in general will be a tougher team. And then also, coming off that game against the Chargers just wipe you out, man. They're so physical that it's going to be tough to turn things around, even though you have some time because it's Monday Night Football to recover from that Chargers game. I think the Bears come away with the victory there in week 6. Then I'm actually going to have the Commanders lose to the Dallas Cowboys. Dak Prescott's really good within the division. They're home. I think that, you'll see later in the show that I think they're going to split. I think the Commanders are going to win their second matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys, but I do think Dallas is good enough this year where they can split with the Washington Commanders this year just like they did last year. So I'm going to have them take their 3rd straight loss here, and I think at this point, Commanders fans are starting to question just how good the Washington Commanders really are, and then that continues to compound here with their 4th straight loss, getting to 500 after 4 straight wins to start this season, taking their 4th straight loss, once again this time on Monday Night Football versus the reigning AFC champions in the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. That's going to be a tough game for the Commanders to go in there and win. But they get back on the winning track here in Week 9 versus the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. I do think they're going to do a good job. I think that game could be relatively close, and, I think that'll be a big-time kind of fourth quarter type of win for Jaden Daniels to get this team back in the win column and back above 500. But then you play the Detroit Lions here in Week 10, another tough matchup, but I'm actually going to have the Commanders win this game in a big confidence booster for their season. They beat this team on the road in the playoffs last year. I think they know how to beat this team. You can certainly make an argument that the coaching there in Detroit is not going to be nearly as good this year. So I'm actually going to have the Commanders win this game. They're second in a row, and I think that's going to really boost the confidence of this Commanders team down the stretch. Now, before we get into the second half of the schedule prediction here, go ahead and get your Jaden Daniels jersey if you haven't already, because let me tell you, man, this guy's going to be the superstar quarterback of this franchise for a very, very long time, and I think that this is a jersey you're going to be able to wear for the rest of your life. So you guys can go chatsports.com/Daniels to pick up your Jaden Daniels Commanders jersey today. Also, if you click our link, chatsports.com/Daniels, that's in the comments and description of today's show, and you make a purchase, Fanatics sends us part of the proceeds here at the Commanders Report. So if you want to help us out for all the free content that we give you guys on this channel, plus you want to get yourself a Jaden Daniels jersey, all you have to do is go chatsports.com/Daniels and make a purchase today. Then we get to Week 11 in Madrid versus the Dolphins. I do think the Commanders have the better overall team. I think Miami's offensive line and secondary are really, really shoddy right now. I do think they will be able to put up points this year, and I think that will be kind of a shootout type of game and a very fun game in Spain. But I think Jaden Daniels and the Commanders end up coming out on top for their third straight victory. Heading into the bye week in Week 12, you're feeling pretty darn good about yourselves. And then in Week 13, you go up against the Denver Broncos at home. Now, obviously, when you play the Broncos, you want to play them at home and not at Mile High Stadium because of the altitude advantage that the Broncos have. But I do think that the Commanders are going to win that football game on Sunday Night Football. I think Jaden Daniels is the superior quarterback to Bo Nix, and I do think that the defense will do a good enough job against Sean Payton's offense to kind of hold them down a little bit and get their fourth straight victory. But after another four straight kind of victory kind of stretch here, I will have them lose on the road to the Minnesota Vikings. And, I'm not expecting like MVP caliber football from J.J. McCarthy this year, but I think he'll be more than good enough to, get that Vikings team to be a playoff contender this year. And on the road, that's going to be a tough game. There at U.S. Bank Stadium, that they have a ruckus crowd there in Minnesota, so I'm going to take the Vikings to win there in Week 14. And then you play the Giants again, and, there might be a question of, will the Washington Commanders sweep the Giants yet again this year? And I think the answer to that question is going to be yes. I think they will win in the Meadowlands there in New York. I think at that point, Jackson Dart will probably be playing for the Giants, and I'm not sure if he's going to be ready to go up against a guy like Jaden Daniels. So I will predict the Commanders to sweep the New York Football Giants this year. And then we get to kind of this late season stretch here where you play the Eagles twice in the span of 3 weeks. I'm going to have them lose the Saturday matchup versus the Eagles in Week 16 at home. And then I'm going to have them bounce back on Christmas versus the Cowboys, splitting with those Cowgirls here this season. And then I'm also going to have them split versus the Philadelphia Eagles. If the Commanders need to win that game to win the division on the road in the Link, I'm actually going to predict the Commanders go in there and win that football game. And one of the, really marquee kind of iconic wins of Jaden Daniels' early NFL career. So at the end of it here, I'm going to have a record prediction of 11-6 for the Washington Commanders. I think that is more than fair for the Burgundy and Gold here. I don't know if they have an elite of the elite roster, but I know that I believe in Jaden Daniels and I believe in Dan Quinn, and I believe this roster is better than what it was last year. And we know the history of this division in the NFC East, guys, where nobody is a repeat champion. So I think there's a pretty decent chance here, especially if it comes down to that final week matchup versus the Eagles, that the Commanders are going to come out on top and win the NFC East in 2025. So let me know, true or false, down there in the comments section. The Commanders will make the playoffs this season. If you're not typing typing those T for trues. I don't know what you're doing, man. But type those T's or type those F's if you disagree, if you think they're going to regress this year. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for today's record prediction, guys. If you want more content from us here at the Commanders Report, make sure you click that subscribe button. And if you made it to the end of today's video, I want to show my appreciation to you guys in the comments section. So type real one down there in the comments in all caps if you made it to the end of today's show, and we'll give you some love down there in the comments. I thank you guys so much for stopping by today. Tomorrow, we will be going live on this channel at 5 p.m. Eastern Time to kick off your weekend with some more Commanders content here on the channel. So make sure you click that subscribe button and join us tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern for Commanders Report Live on a Friday.